Iconic characters, take one. Being human. My first role was I played a werewolf's ex-fiancé who had epilepsy in Being Human, the pilot for BBC Three. And I wore a shiny purple parka, and for some reason I had sideburns that were curled round like Lisa Stansfield. But I was very lucky to get it because I left drama school and didn't have an agent or anything, so a casting director had seen me in my showcase and got me in for the audition. And if I didn't get that part, I wouldn't have got my agent or anything. So I was very, very lucky to get it, even though it was a very odd and stressful experience. It was just like, I'd never done it before, I didn't understand it, and I went to theatre school, so I sort of understood theatre, but then I didn't understand anything. No one tells you, like, when you get on set, what it's going to be like, and will you rehearse or will you not, and I just didn't get it. I learned very, very, very fast on that job, because I was very scared. Little Dorrit. Amy Dorrit was this Dickens character. It was a Dickens adaptation, and she was incredibly sweet and incredibly kind and tiny, and that she only ever did things for other people. She was completely selfless. I mean, I like to think I'm kind too, but I'm definitely bolshy and kind of loud and arsey a lot of the time. And Amy just wasn't that at all, and so I didn't see it, but they just sort of coached me through, and then I got the job. And Dervla Walsh, who was the director of that, she sort of made my career, really. And so suddenly I was, on the back lot at Pinewood Studios, and they'd entirely built all the streets that were in like the Marshalsea prison, and I walk around and imagine what it was like. Everybody does. You sort of want to have a dress on and go fnaf, 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 and sort of walk around.
God has brought this child to my door.
I know I am small, but I am quite grown up.
She understood you were a lady?
I was sort of the youngest person on set. I was so new. I had no idea what was going on. I used to go and have my lunch in the trailer with all the assistant directors, with all the ADs, because I didn't want to be alone. And now I love being in my trailer on my own, but I was like, hi, can I come sit with you? It was just magical. I was so lucky to have been given that experience. It was really magical. Wolf Hall. Peter Kosminski, I've worked with him twice, and he creates an environment where the actor is respected and he doesn't try and inhibit you in any way. He never puts the slate on at the beginning of a take. You just somehow start. And so it's always really special working with him. I love working with him.
Those who've been made can be unmade.
And I loved the books so much, and I was so precious about them, that throughout that whole thing, I was just a really strong critic of myself, which ultimately I think worked, because every decision I took, I questioned whether that was the right decision, and therefore wondered if there was a different way of doing it. Like, it forced me to kind of, the way I normally worked, to kind of think outside of that way of working. And I got to work with Mark Rylance, who's an absolute genius and very rare talent. And it will always be a really special job, because I found out I was pregnant on that job, because I suddenly one morning went to work, and it was the it was the day of my execution, and I woke up and I was like, I just really want a bacon and egg McMuffin. And so on the way to work, I went through a drive-through and got a bacon and egg McMuffin. And I was like, this is really weird, and I'm like going to have, technically, fictionally have my head chopped off. It didn't seem like the right thing to be doing. The Crown. It's very rare that you get a part which I felt like, even though it was my age, I felt like she was a different age. Like, I felt older. I felt she was much more of a character that I had to kind of put on, I suppose. Everything about the way I looked, everything about the way I stood and moved, and the way I spoke, the way I expressed myself, everything was completely different. I had to relearn an entire person.
My name is Elizabeth.
And long live Queen Elizabeth.
I made friends for life on that job, so it will always be, so special to me. First Man.
Question for you. The moon landing, was it real or was it faked?
I mean, Damien Chazelle said something really good, which was how difficult it was to fake it. Yeah. There is no way that it's faked. The amount of effort that they went to recreate the moon landing is obscene. They built the moon like craters in a quarry in Atlanta in order to get the particular type of light that you get, which even doesn't compare, but that looks beautiful shot on IMAX. They had to build a light that was a replica of the sun, and it exploded twice. It was so strong, and they had to shoot the entire thing at night. It's easier to go to the moon than it is to fake the moon landing.
You're a bunch of boys making models out of balsa wood. You don't have anything under control.
It takes a lot of work getting to the point where you've rejected the idea that you can ever be American. And the guilt of not actually being American is huge. It's a whole different frame of reference. There's no shortcuts. Not that there ever are when you're playing another character, like an English character, but, you have to relearn everything about a place and its geography and what that means about then how people hold themselves and express themselves and what their values are and how that shapes a person. And I take all that for granted when I'm working at home. I'm playing an English person because I kind of just inherently know that that's the case. But you really do have to change a lot about your state of mind and the rhythm in which you express yourself and stuff. It's not just the accent. Damien Chazelle's an old soul. He's been here before. He's just not young in that way. He is young, younger than me, but he's such a mature filmmaker and so in control of the process and what he wants and so trusting of his actors. Ryan is just the kindest, most generous possible person you could ever try and act opposite. Yeah, I was a real equal on that set, which you would think is not the case. They've worked together before. They are who they are. I was definitely kind of going in going, oh, thanks for having me. And they just made me feel so welcome all the time. Unsane. Steven Soderbergh just makes it so easy, and we both, he said, how do you feel about going to New York for 10 days and making a student film? And I was like, yes, please, because I was coming off The Crown, and I didn't even know that was he never said it was going to come out, that film. I should never have believed him. And so I didn't know what it was. I just went into it thinking this is just for me, and I just played, and he would say, okay, run down this corridor. I'd be like, great! Or he'd say, okay, now you've just taken loads of drugs and you've got loads of side effects. I'm like, great! And so I just got to just be really free, really. And it worked for that because we shot chronologically and there was lots in it that, as watching it as an audience member, we were like, why is she going into that room? Why is she doing that? But if I was just in the state of mind of just going with it and going with the flow, and so it really helped with that character.
Please, send help. Thank you.
Do you know how many calls the cops get like that every week?
Those are from crazy people.
Steven Soderbergh is just brilliant, and I find him really inspiring the way he doesn't want to do anything with reputation in mind. He doesn't care about what people think of him as a filmmaker. He loves film, and he's interested in film, and so he will continue to kind of challenge himself and educate himself about it. And so doing that, I was like, I just want a piece of that. Yeah, I'd do it all again tomorrow. I just absolutely loved it. Breathe. We shot it in 7 weeks. It was completely immersive. I loved working with Andrew and Andy. It was a very, very tender story, and the producer was the child of these two people, Diana and Robin Cavendish. So I got to know Diana and I got to know Robin through his son and his wife, and from the beginning it felt really like nothing else I'd ever done.
Oh, it's Daddy.
Hello, Jonathan.
Every day was emotional. Every day was beautiful for some reason or another. It was a ridiculous experience. We were filming in the British countryside, and then we went to Africa. In Africa, we were constantly, it seemed. My only memory of it is that we were constantly filming at sunset or sunrise. There was nothing in between. It was one of the most beautiful filming experiences I've ever had. It was unreal. The Girl in the Spider's Web. I'd read all the books, and then I watched all 3 Swedish films, and I watched the David Fincher film as well. So I wouldn't say I was an avid fan, but I mean enough to have watched all of them and read all the books. So yeah, definitely a fan. And I just think he created such a unique character who people have really adored for such a long time. It's pretty incredible.
If anything unexpected should happen to her, this video will be sent to him.